2014 is coming to an end, so it's a good time to take stock of the biggest events that shaped the past 12 months and to look ahead to 2015. It has been a year in which Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine in the first land grab in Europe since World War II. China officially surpassed the US as the biggest economy in the world. Scotland narrowly voted against a divorce with the rest of the United Kingdom. The self-styled Islamic State swept across Iraq and Syria. And the price of oil dropped to its lowest level in 5 years. Now, as is tradition at the FT, we're going to put ourselves on the line and make some predictions for next year. And joining me to bet on what's in store for 2015 is FT leader writer James Blitz. James, you were in this position this time last year.
Yes, indeed.
So before we talk about 2015, can you give our viewers a sense of how accurate the FT's 2014 predictions were?
We got some things right and we got some things wrong. The things we got right, we said that Narendra Modi would become Prime Minister of India, which he did. And we said that the people of Scotland would vote against independence in September, which they also did. So we were pleased with that.
And what did we get wrong?
Well, we said that the Bank of England would raise interest rates, which they clearly didn't. We said that Virgin would have its first successful space flight, which it clearly didn't. And we said that oil would hang around $100 a barrel, which it clearly hasn't. So
slightly off there.
Afraid we got a few things wrong there, yes.
Okay, and you've been collating the views of various experts from around the FT then of what we can expect to happen in 2015. So are you ready for me to quiz you on that?
I'm ready, Vanessa.
Okay, let's start right here in the UK. Who will be in power after the general election?
Well, we think that there is going to be a national government in Britain, a coalition between the Conservatives and Labour for the first time since 1931, because we think the result of the general election in May is going to be so fragmented that they will have to come together to form a government.
Okay, and over in the US, do we think there will be any serious rival emerge to Hillary Clinton for the 2016 US presidential race?
No, we don't. We think the Republicans will see Jeb Bush probably throwing his hat in the ring, but they don't have to decide till 2016. On the Democrat side, Elizabeth Warren will try to become the candidate, but she's not going to stand in the way of Hillary Clinton being the nominee in 2016.
Will Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies collapse?
We don't think they'll collapse. People are still prepared to throw their money into them for some reason, but at the same time, we certainly don't think Bitcoin is going to become the major currency that people had anticipated it would be at one point.
Okay, another interest rate prediction. Which central bank, the US Federal Reserve or the Bank of England, will raise interest rates first?
It's going to be the Fed. Never bet against the Fed, as they say. We think that the British are never quite sure whether they're going to raise rates or not. They've been a bit all over the place over the last year, but we think the Fed will go ahead.
Will the Ebola virus be eliminated by the end of the year?
Yes, we're optimistic on that. We think that enough money and resources are being poured into fighting Ebola in West Africa by the international community, and we think the region will be an Ebola-free zone by the end of 2016.
Will the US and its allies put troops on the ground to fight ISIS?
No. We think that they will put more special forces on the ground, and we think ISIS will remain a really big problem, but we don't see the US or its allies in NATO putting any combat forces on the ground in the wake of Afghanistan and Iraq.
Do we think Vladimir Putin and Russia will annex any more territory, either in the Ukraine or elsewhere?
We don't think he will. We think that his focus will be much more on the domestic economic scene with the collapse of the ruble, and we think he knows that there will be the risk of more sanctions if he tries to take over more territory, but we retain the caveat that Putin is unpredictable.
Okay. And here in London, do we think the price of super prime property will fall?
Yes, we think it's going to fall 10% in parts of London.
Very specific guess?
Very much so. We think Belgravia and Mayfair will be okay, but we think that things like Ed Balzer's proposed mansions tax in the UK general election campaign will soften sentiment on prime property in London.
And over in India, do we think that India's GDP will grow under newly elected Prime Minister Modi?
We think it will. We think it will rise from its current level of about 5.7%, but we don't think it's going to reach the level of between 7 and 9% that India saw a few years ago without Modi putting forward some serious structural reforms.
We've already said that China has overtaken the US as the biggest economy in the world, but will Chinese GDP continue to slow next year?
Yes, probably the biggest worry for many of our viewers. We think that the Chinese will set a growth target of 7% at the start of next year, but we think it's going to fall below that because of problems with the property market, problems of a lack of investment, and so China will disappoint.
Will the European Central Bank adopt full-scale quantitative easing?
Yes, we think finally there will be full-blown QE in the Eurozone. They have to go ahead with that if they're to fight the dragon of deflation, but sparks will fly in the European Central Bank Council because the Germans don't particularly want it.
Okay, as you say, we were way off on the oil prediction last year, so let's try again. Will the price of Brent crude drop below $50 a barrel?
Last year's prediction has not stopped us being bold. We think oil will go below $50. We think that Saudi Arabia is continuing to, with its supply, and it's not going to cut it, and at the same time production on the shale side will continue. So yes, it's going below 50.
Okay, and let's end on a light note. Do we think 2015 will be the year of wearable technology? I noticed you haven't got any on, but what do you think?
Google and Apple would love it to be the year of Google Glass and the Apple Watch, but we don't understand why people want to buy these things.
People love gadgets.
They love gadgets, but we don't understand why you particularly want those. So we think, yes, there'll be a lot of excitement about it, and a lot of promotion and all the rest of it, but in the end, we're not sure it's going to be quite the big deal that those big companies would like it to be.
Okay, thanks very much, James. We'll have to wait till this time next year to see how accurate our predictions were.
All of them will be.
And to read the full report on the FT's predictions for 2015, please visit ft.com/predictions.